What is going on, everybody? Welcome to All Ends Spoilercast for the Super Mario Brothers movie. You got me, Seth. I'm here with Eric, my amazing co-host, and we're here to chat about the Super Mario Brothers movie. Man, I want to say right here, right on Front Street, if you've not seen the Super Mario Brothers movie, spoiler warning: we are spoiling absolutely everything in this conversation.
Alarms,
Alert. This is a spoiler cast, so if you have not seen the movie yet, don't want to be spoiled, turn back now. We did, of course, have a spoiler-free discussion on the podcast as well as here on the YouTube channel that I'll have links to for you to check out if you want to hear our spoiler-free thoughts on the movie. But you have been warned, this is a spoiler cast. We are going to spoil every single solitary thing about this movie. And I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. I just realized that my terrible alarm sound effect sounds like a Yoshi in distress. Rare.
Or like if you take that noise and you quiet it, it's like a Shy Guy a little bit. Like a
little bit, yeah. A little bit, yeah.
I could see
that. But we're absolutely going to spoil everything, including the fact that I don't even know how they're going to do a sequel after this because everybody dies in the end. Nintendo went full scorched earth on everything.
Oh my gosh.
It was a bold choice, but yeah,
it was a bold choice. I mean, like the fact that they had the red wedding in this, I couldn't believe it.
Exactly.
There is a wedding in this, and there's even a little bit of a red wedding in this.
Man, did they cherry pick so much stuff from across Nintendo and Mario history? Little elements of everything from, the very beginning, and very clear homages to most of the core games in the franchise. And we're going to get into all of that. But I mean, where to even start with the spoilers in this movie? Because honestly, and we've already talked about this in the non-spoiler version of the podcast, but the story itself, I mean, even just kind of talking about how admittedly threadbare the overall plot is, I think is kind of a spoiler, because at that point, I think the majority of reasonable moviegoers can kind of assume most of the plot points. Not like, we expected there to be a ton of twists and turns here in the Mario movie. Of course, Mario as a franchise was never really known for its narrative depth throughout the core series, which was one of the big things that kind of were making us wonder how they were going to adapt it in the first place. But yeah, spoiler warning, they beat Bowser in the end. Peach does not, in fact, marry the big red turtle. The Super Mario Brothers save both the Mushroom Kingdom and Brooklyn.
And everything. Yeah, it's there's actually it's interesting, and this is something that again I mentioned in the non-spoiler review, but there is a little bit more here than I think I was expecting, and maybe that is kind of a good place to start, because we got character motivations and backstories that I didn't think we would in this movie. Because coming into it, I sort of, and I've talked about sort of I think I wrote a better plot for this movie than we got. But that's okay. I was kind of thinking to myself when I was watching this, though, when it kind of became clear what this was going to be, which is an Illumination movie, which is a kids movie, and with a pretty, light plot to it, but getting backstory behind the Mario Brothers themselves, getting to see their family in this movie, getting to see, a little tinge of Peach's backstory, which I think, and I definitely want to speculate on the sequel later on, because I am so intrigued by Peach's backstory in this movie. Even Bowser's motivations, I think, were not really made clear to us in the trailers. In the trailers, Bowser is kind of like menacing, clearly going after the Power Star, but he's got a whole other side to him in this movie where he really does, for better or for worse, love Peach and wants to marry her, and that's a huge part of his motivation. In fact, that's all of his motivation. He doesn't really care that much about destroying the Mushroom Kingdom. It's really just a byproduct of, I'm going to either marry Peach or destroy the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah, he's like the worst Chad ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird because Bowser, while being arguably the most iconic video game villain in the history of the medium, has always just kind of done villainous things for the sake of doing villainous things. But the one kind of common thread behind all of it is normally, at least in the core series, it's always kind of targeted directly at Peach. He's always had a fixation on Peach. And of course, in Mario Odyssey, there was the whole wedding angle. So we knew there was something behind Kenny James's iconic grunts and growls. We knew there was something there, and that's clearly what Nintendo and Illumination wanted to build on. It's like Bowser clearly has this fixation on Peach, but why? And of course we find out, Occam's razor, the easiest explanation is probably the real one. He loves her in his own weird, psychotic, lunatic way. And everything that he's doing is in a weird, warped way for her. Yeah. And I do think that ultimately works with the character. It does create... I'm kind of torn between saying that it creates a nice dichotomy and a weird cognitive dissonance. Because it's almost like Bowser has multiple personality disorder, like he has DID. So it's weird because it's almost like the tonal difference between hearing the amazing score that was created for this movie with all the Mario references juxtaposed with the jarring licensed music that we were getting every 5 minutes. It's almost kind of that type of tonal cognitive dissonance, but there's, I don't know, it's weird and jarring, but does it kind of work? I don't know. That's actually a hard question for me to answer. Yeah. In a way, I think it does. In a way, I think it doesn't. But I don't know. When it's centered around a villainous character, a character that is supposedly, hopefully going to instill feelings of, unease or discomfort, I don't know if that could actually work in the villain's favor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or maybe I'm thinking about it too much. Well, I mean, you remember my Kid Icarus take, so.
Oh, we'll get to that. Because I like that a lot. But I think what's interesting about Bowser here is that we've seen a lot of movies, particularly in recent Marvel movies, for example, where there's a strong implication to make a villain relatable or understandable or something. And Bowser, while we do understand he loves Peach, he's not justified or relatable in that way whatsoever. He's a psycho, mm-hmm. And we don't really know why or how that seed was planted. That was something I would have liked to see a little bit more, admittedly. I would have liked to see a little bit more of the back and forth between him and Peach, kind of where he fell in love with Peach. It was
the heart-shaped bangs.
Yeah, it would have been kind of nice if we had gotten a quick little flashback of just Bowser, kind of the moment where Bowser decided he loved her or whatever. But regardless of why that happened, he flips on a dime and they play with that. The eyes will go red. He goes from 0 to 100, but he can at the same time as being super intimidating, and one of the first spoken words of this movie is him threatening to kill people.
Yeah.
He can be super threatening,
As somebody who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s where they weren't even allowed to use the word kill or die in children's television, where we're going to destroy you, we're going to annihilate, all these cartoonishly superlative words. You can never use anything as direct as kill or die. Bowser in this kid's animated movie straight up and says, "I'm gonna kill you." Jesus,
dude, I had the same reaction. Yeah, I had the same reaction. It's so funny. I didn't think about that. I thought that was just a me thing, but I absolutely had the same reaction. I was they are using the word die and kill a lot in this movie. In the first trailer it's open the gates, and in the actual movie it's open the gates or die. I'm oh my gosh. But regardless, he flips on a dime like that, and he definitely can go doughy-eyed and kind of cute also. He almost has his Peach mode, his Peach-loving Bowser mode, and his villainous Bowser mode. And it isn't, I'm not trying to say that he's justified or whatever, because I don't think he is, but it is a lot more interesting than...
I'm glad you have that outlook on the
character. Yeah. You know what? Bowser did nothing wrong, I'm here to say.
Bowser was right.
But I will... I'll say though that it's more interesting at least than just like I'm kidnapping Peach. He didn't ever kidnap her, or even that never even really came into his calculus. There was never a moment in the movie.
He never, like, outwardly, he manipulatively forced her to come with him. He didn't actually grab her and take her on, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, I think I feel like that was kind of the kidnap scene, is sort of, toward the end, after Peach thinks her entire Kong army and Mario and Donkey Kong are all dead after the incident on Rainbow Road, and she gets back to the Toad Kingdom and Bowser shows up. I think that was effectively like the kidnap scene, but in order to keep Peach, I think, from feeling too weak or helpless, instead of Bowser like physically grabbing her and just taking her on the airship with him, they instead play it up as a noble sacrifice that she goes with him.
Right. Yeah, and I think it works, but it's also, I think it has the sort of like the added benefit of Bowser being just a little bit, frankly, more interesting, I think, than if he were to just kidnap her, you know. And so I appreciated that about him. It also, as long as we're talking about Bowser, just the way that Jack Black like performs that character is like really, and I liked it. We both seen the movie multiple times now.
Yes.
And I like it more the more I engage with it. The more I engage with it, the more I like it.
I do too. There is a very noticeable, like, in the back of his voice. There is a gut, like, you can absolutely tell it's Jack Black, and he does go full Jack Black sometimes, but when he's trying to be menacing Bowser, there is an unmistakable guttural growl in the back of every line that really comes from true professionals. And you got to respect that. I really think he did a better job than I expected. I was admittedly I was actually more reserved about Jack Black's casting at the beginning than I was about Chris Pratt's casting, because I wondered about how this take on Bowser was going to work with the famously goofy Jack Black, whether or not he was going to be able to pull off anything resembling threatening or menacing. But he did a very good job in that, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. His entire thing, and then, you know, like, even though this movie is not a musical, which there were a lot of rumors before the movie came out that it would be, we did end up getting, you've got Jack Black, so of course Bowser does sing in this movie. Yeah. And I think that this is going to be a talking point for a lot of people coming out of this movie is Peaches.
Peaches, 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 peach,
dude. It's so good. Like, and it's a very simple song. Jack Black probably whipped this thing up in 2 minutes. It's a very simple song. But
it does have very clear undertones to Tenacious D with the tone and the kind of sweet but underlying goofy mannerisms that he, like, only Jack Black could deliver with a song like this. Again, that really towed the line for me between too much.
Yeah.
But I think it saved itself from going too far. At least I was able to enjoy it, and it is catchy and stupid enough to be enjoyable in its own right.
Yeah. The first time I watched the movie, I thought, this is too Jack Black. Like, this is too far. Like, you're literally just seeing Jack Black here on screen. And that's still true, but, like, the more I engage with this movie again, the more I just like that portrayal of the character, and the more I'm like, okay, he's a baby. Like, he's a man-child, this character. He has no hold over his emotions, to where even when he's, like, singing this love ballad on the piano, he is, like, losing control of his body and even his voice. Like, especially, like, when he's and he's, like, going all over the place, you know? Like, I think it really illustrates just the complete lack of control that Bowser actually has over his emotions, which is interesting. And this is just, you know, we've been sitting here talking about Bowser for like several minutes, and that's more than I would have expected out of this movie, you know?
Yeah.
So.
But Jack Black, well, the vocal performances across the board were a major talking point coming into the film. We've talked about Jack Black, but everybody and their dog was really wondering how Chris Pratt was going to fare in this movie. And guys, I think he did really well.
I did too.
I think he did really well. They very clearly touch on the full Mario, voice at the beginning. They make a direct reference to that, and then, go back into his slightly more toned down. I say slightly more. It is considerably toned down from Charles Martinet's typical performance. But the fact that they make that direct comparison immediately, and the way that they do it, the way that they make that shift, I thought made the entire thing feel incredibly natural. You've already established what people know, and you say, okay, that's what you guys know. We're moving it here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's perfect the way they handled it, I think. Yeah.
I thought so too.
Because the movie opens with, and it was so funny on the drive over, and there are a lot of, this is not like unique to me, but there are a lot of people who kind of knew how this movie was going to open because they set it up perfectly. If you're a script writer and you have this moment with Bowser, who's going to stop me, built in, that you knew at that moment when we knew the Super Mario Brothers plumbing commercial was in, that was just the perfect place to put it. And that's exactly how the movie opens. It opens with what we saw in the very first trailer for this movie, Bowser taking over the Snow Kingdom, Chill Kingdom, whatever, taking their superstar, the superstar, and then having that moment, and then it immediately cuts to the Super Mario Brothers plumbing commercial where Chris Pratt is doing a Charles Martinet-esque Mario, kind of a very
pretty impressive Charles Martinet-esque Mario, as a matter of fact. Yeah. And then they finish that commercial. The commercial is actually quite a bit longer than the version that we were teased in the marketing leading up to the release of the movie, and it very much shows off a more elongated version of Chris Pratt's much more cartoonish, much more game faithful impression. Right. And then, of course, the commercial ends, and they talk about, it's like, is that too much? And they actually address whether or not that's too much, which was perfect. And then, even though they paid Charles Martinet to be there, clearly, and they paid him to read those lines, the fact that he was there to kind of at least... I don't know how much Charles Martinet was okay with the fact that he was passing, but the fact that they did have Charles Martinet there as quote-unquote Jumpman...
Yeah,
to pass. Yeah,
the character's name is, I guess. Yeah, and it's interesting because that character is very clearly modeled after Jumpman's design.
Yes,
like the original Mario design. When you look at artwork of the original Mario, he looks like that. Yeah, and he's playing Jumpman, the Jumpman like arcade cabinet, which
literally
is
called Jumpman. It's literally called Jumpman in the movie. Yeah. It's Donkey Kong, but it's literally called Jumpman, which is a nice touch.
Yeah, and in real life, it would have been Donkey Kong, but they were considerate to the lore of, okay, there probably shouldn't be a Donkey Kong game in Brooklyn where Donkey Kong also exists in this world. So I appreciate that. And he's literally playing Jumpman, and he's like, it's perfect, and he does the whole, it's Charles Martinet's Mario. He's just, wahoo, he's doing the voice, and it did feel like a really great passing of the torch, and this all takes place, this is all in the opening scenes of the movie, in Punch-Out Pizzeria. Yeah. And this is the part of the movie where I can't wait to get the Blu-ray of this home and just pause it. Yeah. And just look at all the little stuff on the walls. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff I noticed on the second. I mean, clearly, the balloon fight mascot on the car wash.
Yes.
And of course, the all-in spade on the billboards. But there were a couple things I noticed on a second viewing that nobody I've seen on the internet has even mentioned. I am almost certain there's a direct Duck Hunt dog reference in the house at the beginning of I was about to say the game, the house at the beginning of the movie where they do their first plumbing job, and then of course. Okay. Yeah, in one of the kind of more Art Deco type of paintings, during one of the shots, it looks like a fairly clear Duck Hunt Dog reference. And then on the, I'm going to have to see it again, but the skyline, you remember when the dog falls out the window and they have to plunge him back up, basically, after everything goes awry during their first mission during their first plumbing job? The shot outside of the window, I think that is actually like a multi-layered representation of like 1-1.
It is, yeah. They have, so you see like some empty skylight boxes that are modeled after 1-1.
After the box, yeah.
And in that same shot, they've also got a little Pikmin statue on their table, which is really cute. Like, just, it's stuff like that is everywhere in this movie. Absolutely everywhere. That Punch-Out Pizzeria has got all these different Punch-Out characters on the wall. There's even, like, up there by the bar, there's a picture of Doc and Little Mac, you know. Like, you've even got, speaking of Duck Hunt, there's a Duck Hunt duck on the wall, too. You know, it's just loaded with this stuff, man. And it isn't long before they start getting razzed by Foreman Spike, played by Sebastian Maniscalco. I thought he was so good. Like, it's a minor character, but like, this is such a perfect, like, just foil character. Now, I'll say this: who goes into a pizzeria, eats one slice, and leaves? That drove me nuts. Like, he eats a slice, pays for it, and then the rest of the pizza's just on the table after he leaves. Psychotic behavior. So, but
that's why they lit the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah, but Foreman Spike's good. He's giving him all this junk, you know, about leaving the Wrecking Crew. You're a joke, Mario. You know, and one thing that like really impressed me about this movie, again, for as threadbare as the plot is, they establish right away the relationship that Mario and Luigi have, because Luigi goes to sort of dunk on Spike, or try to anyway, breaks his phone, and Spike says something to the effect of like, you know, you're gonna let your loser little brother like hold you back or whatever. And Mario's like, say something again about my brother. You know what I mean?
And he has a very Captain America, Steve Rogers-esque little guy standing up to the bully moment, even though he knows he's about to get pummeled. But when it comes to Mario's relationships with basically everybody that we need to know his relationships with, they're established really well. The fact that he's got, they could have just added like a mother and a father,
right?
But they didn't. Like, they added several more brothers, like a sister-in-law, a grandpa, plus their mom and dad. Like, it's a full-on like Italiano. Like, it's a big family.
Yes. So I'm Italian, and that is so accurate to what an Italian family is like. You've got everybody around the table, everybody's picking on each other. They even have, towards the end of the movie, it's like breakfast time, like when they come back to Brooklyn, and they have a traditional old school Italian coffee maker on the table. My grandmother absolutely had one of those. And it was so funny because like I was looking at that shot, and it like just seeing something as dumb as this little I'm like, it reminds me of my grandma Borgini's house, you know. Like it was funny how like accurate it was to being like in an Italian family. And they're serving like this pasta where we establish this amazing running gag with Mario not liking mushrooms. It's funny because like I coming into this movie, I didn't think I was going to relate to Mario as much as I did. You know, and like, I gotta say, and like, Chris Pratt's performance helps, but also the characterization of Mario here, you know, I also don't like mushrooms, so I can relate to him on that level, but the idea of like sacrificing everything that you have to pursue your dream and people laughing at you for it, like, that's something I can relate to for sure, and he has like a chip on his shoulder and something to prove, and like, to me, that was super effective, like, right away. This is in the first, like, 5-10 minutes of the movie. And I was like, they've got me already with this version of Mario.
And I did like the fact there's a lot of different ways they could have maybe, thrown in a little bit of extra conflict to increase the stakes, or maybe make the character dynamics more interesting. But when it came to Mario and Luigi, like, it was just nothing. Like, we're all in with each other. It's us against the world. Mm-hmm. No heat, no animosity. nothing between us. I love you, and I would do anything, sacrifice anything for you, and vice versa. And obviously we've got that kind of the character dynamic of Peach and Mario, who are meeting for the first time. So there's the awkwardness and the growing and a lot of that. But with Mario and Luigi, it's just established very quickly. This is the unbreakable bond within this story.
I love that so much. And it's funny because I was thinking about, we did on our main show, we do weekly top fives on our main podcast. And we did a top five once, the top 5 things that we wanted this movie to learn from the 1993 movie. And one of them was the relationship between Mario and Luigi. Like, this is the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I really love that. Like, there's that quiet moment where, as you pointed out, with Kid Icarus, where Mario's playing Kid Icarus, which is, on the surface level, seems like something that would be just a fun little throwaway Easter egg, but it's not. You made the point. It is not just a little Easter egg. It's very intentional.
Yeah, so, Mario, it's established that this plumbing endeavor that the Super Mario Brothers are starting up at the beginning of the movie is... they spent all their money on this commercial. This is not something that they've been doing for years. This is a brand new venture for them. Very soon after quitting the Wrecking Crew, quitting on Foreman Spike, they spent all their money on this commercial. They've started their own little business. They spent all their money on matching outfits and a van and all that stuff. I guess they spent too much money on the paint for the van and not enough on the engine.
Yeah.
And of course, Spike telling them that they're never going to amount to anything, and they clearly they hadn't gotten a call yet. They got their first dad. Call. Yeah, their family is all basically. It's like, you made the wrong decision. Why did you do that? And Mario basically feeling like the entire world is telling him that you've tried too much. And then all of a sudden they throw in Kid Icarus there. And he's playing Kid Icarus on the NES, and very crucially, he dies in Kid Icarus, which I immediately took as a direct reference to, the actual Icarus of lore, who flew too close to the sun, wings melted, and then he fell. And I just took that as an immediate parallel to what the world was trying to tell Mario in his life right now. You have flown too close to the sun. You're about to fall. Yeah. It wasn't just a random NES Easter egg. It was a very clear message from the universe to Mario, telling him he's not good enough. He's going to fall. And worst, he's going to bring his brother down with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that take on it. I hadn't thought of that until you mentioned it. And I love that. And you're so right. That's absolutely what it is. And it's also too, like, that's such a nice quiet moment where, like, Luigi kind of comes in and he brings the food in, because Mario walked away from the dinner table, and then, after that sort of defeating quiet moment of, like, he's like, I'm tired of feeling small, then that's when the news report comes on with my girl, of course, Mayor Pauline. They're having trouble.
Who I've seen multiple content creators mistakenly call her a news reporter.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh no, this won't do. That's not good, dude. I don't like that. Yeah, so it's Mayor Pauline, who is there on the news report asking basically for anybody to save Brooklyn, and that is kind of the inciting incident that gets them to this kind of underground network of pipes underneath Brooklyn, which is really interesting. Something I picked up on the second viewing. There are a lot of amazing things happening all the time in this movie. The fact that it's called level 1-2 when they go underneath is great. It's obviously playing the iconic music. But Mario makes a comment about that area not being accessed. Like, clearly nobody's been down there for a long, long time. And it's clearly got, like, all of these, interconnected pipes and things, and that's where the warp pipe to the Mushroom Kingdom is. And that's where, that Mario and Luigi wind up getting sucked into the warp pipe. They end up getting separated, which we pretty much knew that was going to happen from the trailers, but that's kind of the events that kick everything into motion. Mario winds up in the Mushroom Kingdom with like Toad, and Luigi ends up in the Dark Lands, is what they call
Yeah.
it.
I will admit, there's one thing about that did slightly annoy me. The fact that they had to contrive something that has never once been true in the history of the Mario franchise. The fact that a single warp pipe can lead to multiple locations.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, they basically had to force they had to force that round peg into a square hole, or square peg into a round peg.
Whatever.
They had to force that in there essentially just to create the conflict of Luigi and Mario getting separated.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing they're constantly telling each other is as long as we're together, nothing bad is going to happen. So for bad things to happen, they have to be separated.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's exactly what happens. And in the Darklands kind of scene, when we see what's going on with Luigi, it is nice because, like, you can tell that they're trying to plant seeds in a lot of different places in this movie. This was so Luigi's Mansion, it ain't even funny. Like, you got Luigi there with the flashlight. He doesn't say it quite the way I was wanting him. He doesn't do the full-on Mario. He doesn't go that far. I wish he did. I think that they should have given Charlie Day that direction. But he does say, like, Mario, where are you? You know, he gives you a little bit of it, but it's not quite there. They're obviously playing the Luigi's Mansion music in that music, which is great. And he's being chased by dry bones, and eventually gets captured by some Shy Guys. He goes into a mansion. Like, they very clearly are giving you a taste of Luigi's Mansion in here.
Well, I mean, it was just like the Mario Kart section. This was the Luigi's Mansion section.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful, and there are a few things in this movie that I'm hopeful are sort of like teases of things to come. That's one of them. Luigi's Mansion should be something.
You know, fun fact, the Super Mario Brothers movie is getting its own Monopoly adaptation.
Right.
And the only thing they could think to represent Luigi was his broken flashlight that he loses at the end of the first act.
That's funny.
So,
wow.
Yeah. I just thought that was like, of all the things, you know, maybe that just...
hat, something?
Mario's got his hat. Mario's got his hat in the Monopoly. I think Peach has the crown. I think DK has a barrel.
Makes sense.
Toad has...
Frying pan?
Frying pan, yeah. The frying pan. Yep.
Makes sense.
It was like, oh, you gave Luigi a broken flashlight. Ugh.
Like, really? Come on, dude. Yeah, but I did like that. And then, you know, they have to establish all the stuff with Mario and the Mushroom Kingdom, and we meet Toad. Of course, it plays the Captain Toad music, which makes me very happy. It's really just like the in terms of the plot and the way that it kind of goes from there, it's just kicking off, you know, the events of what we know is going to happen. Mario meets up with Princess Peach.
The hero fish out of water.
Hero fish out of water, totally. And they have fun with that. You know, like there's a lot of fun, like little gags with, you know, I love how they keep calling back to the mushroom thing. Like Mario's now literally in a mushroom kingdom. He hates mushrooms. Like, this is a cruel twist of fate. You know, I love that. And then we finally get to like Toad Town, whatever you want to call it. It's usually called Toad Town, and that is another area that's like stuffed with little references. There's like a toad that is like running the customer service desk, and you hear him in the background. You try blowing into it first, you know, all these little things. Yeah.
I noticed the Crazy Cap store from Mario Odyssey on my second viewing.
Yep. There's a Crazy Cap store in there. There's a ton of stuff in the background like that. And when we get to the actual castle. Peach is with a council of toads. They specifically call it the council.
That should have been Toadsworth.
It should have been.
That absolutely should have been Toadsworth. That honestly surprised me. With as faithful and as Easter egg laden and as clearly as this movie was made for the fans, it surprised me that, like, we've established that Toadsworth exists. So it really surprised me that the one, like, elderly toad here wasn't Toadsworth. That just really was weird.
he has like a deeper voice than the others. He has glasses. He's really like one of the only members of like the Toad Council that really like speaks too much. He clearly is in charge. It should have been Toadsworth. I agree. But yeah, it was cool to see all of that, and I really am intrigued by Peach's backstory in this movie because it's revealed when her and Mario, they wind up linking up, going on their adventure, and blah, blah, blah. He convinces her to help him save his brother, and he's going to go with her to the Kong Kingdom, to the Jungle Kingdom, take down Bowser, and all of this. But the dialogue they have becomes, wait a minute, you're a human. Right away. Like, that's the first thing that Peach says to Mario, is like, hang on, like, you're a human in this world. Like, I've never seen another human, essentially. And right away you're planting the seed of what we know now to be Peach's backstory, which is she came in through a warp pipe as a baby too. And that has my head spinning of like, what's going on with that? And she was raised by the Toads, and the Toads made her their princess. I'm like, the possibilities in my head are all over the place with that. Unfortunately, we don't really get much more than that in the movie, because I think we're going to touch on that in the sequel.
Yeah. There were a couple very obvious seeds planted towards something involving Rosalina in a sequel. Yeah. When it comes to Peach reminiscing about her past and where she potentially comes from, like, she looks directly to the sky.
Totally.
And even the whole thing about there's a big galaxy, there's a big universe out there. There's a ton of galaxies. Yeah. Like, they're very clearly directly hinting at some type of relationship between Rosalina and Peach. Now, I think you could very easily make the connections like, well, Rosalina's maybe her mother or something, which I think is interesting considering that in the games, specifically in the first Mario Galaxy, the storybook that Rosalina reads to the Lumas makes it kind of clear that Rosalina is probably Peach's daughter.
It seems that way. Yeah.
They never explicitly say anything, but there's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge going on. But regardless of what the actual relationship is or is going to be in this universe of the Super Mario Brothers, there is very clearly another wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Rosalina and Peach are connected somehow.
Totally. They definitely are. And I think that there's a lot of things that I'm thinking about in relation to this. Regardless, there's a huge emphasis on parental relationships in this movie between the Mario Brothers and their dad, which comes full circle between Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong. There is a definite emphasis on parental relationships, not living up to who your parents, think you are, and maybe, or who your parents want you to be, rather. And there could be something that they play with in the sequel. I would love to see Bowser Jr. come into play at some point. Yeah. I would love to see I'm sure they must be tackling Rosalina in some capacity in the way they're connected, if she is Peach's mother, if she's Peach's sister in this canon.
Yeah.
That would be interesting too, but to your point, in that scene where they're in the Field of Fire Flowers, the first place her mind goes when she thinks about her origin is to look in the stars, and I think that she is very clearly from some other place, some other galaxy, not necessarily Brooklyn. Not necessarily the quote-unquote real world. So that is very intriguing to me, and it stands to reason, because they have now MacGuffined in the fact that warp pipes are this like interconnected, like the end of Loki season 1 thing where it's all the threads of the multiverse coming together or whatever. That warp pipe could go quite literally anywhere. And they even baked in the final act of the movie, a event with that gigantic bonsai bill that goes in there and explodes.
That bonsai nuke.
Bowser calls him a bomber bill in the movie, but it's a bonsai bill. The Bonsai Bills don't have arms. Bullet Bills have arms. Bonsai Bills don't. That's the only real difference. But he's a gigantic Bonsai Bill that Mario basically baits in a Tanuki suit away from the Mushroom Kingdom and into the warp pipe, and it then explodes blows up like the highway of connected warp pipes and causes everything from the Mushroom Kingdom to be sucked in and go out into Brooklyn. And it makes me wonder if there's gotta be some of that that's going to some of the other connected places too. Like, why would it just go to Brooklyn? So it'd be kind of interesting if this whole time Rosalina, if she's like Peach's mother, if she's her sister, whatever, she's got no clue of knowing where she went. Well, maybe now she does. Maybe now there's something from the Mushroom Kingdom that wound up in whatever galaxy Rosalina's in, and all of a sudden she has a scent.
Also, there was a massive nuclear explosion somewhere in this nexus of pipes that's sure to attract some attention.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that should be like the inciting incident that gets, a lot of this stuff to connect. And, and in one of the post-credit scenes, for anybody who didn't stay all the way to the end, I feel sorry for you, because we got to see Yoshi there in what we assume what looks like the underground sewer pipe network. The Yoshi egg cracks and we hear Yoshi and everything. Like, there are elements from the Mushroom Kingdom going out into other worlds. And that's kind of what I'm hoping happens in the sequels. I'm hoping that Rosalina is clued in on some of that. Especially, not only did we have all of this allusion to Mario Galaxy, we had Lumali in this movie too.
It's so great.
Which, a great character. Was so funny. just like the entire characterization, like, more meat for the grinder. It's so good.
Just this adorable doomsayer.
Yeah. The Penguin King's like, we are so depressed, stop. Yeah. And one thing that was kind of fun too, the directors of this movie are they're the guys behind Teen Titans Go, and so they worked in Carrie Payton, who's the voice of Cyborg, is the Penguin King, and then Scott Menville, the voice of Robin, is that Dry Bones that speaks up, or the Koopa rather.
Drama.
Not even. I think that's him, but it's the one that speaks up in the concert scene.
Oh, the one that asks Bowser's like,
yeah.
Do you think she's even gonna say yes?
Yeah. And Bowser just like kills him, basically turns him into a Dry Bones. That's the voice of Robin. So that was kind of cool. Oh man, and that scene too is really good. It's playing the Fury Bowser theme in that scene. Oh my god, it was so cool. But anyways, I hope we get more of those threads tugged. Even like in the credits, like when we get to the end of the movie and Luma Lee introduces the credits scene and they start playing Gusty Garden Galaxy in the credits.
Oh my god, dude. I told you when I came out of the movie the first time, when they started playing Gusty Garden during the credits, right before the mid-credit scene, like I actually started getting goosebumps. Like, dun, dun, dun. I was like,
The music in this movie is so good, man.
Well, the new music in this movie is so good.
Licensed music notwithstanding.
See, the weird thing is, like, I understand, especially when it comes to, modern animated movies, Shrek proved that something like that could really work. But the way they used just unaltered licensed songs in the movie, No Sleep Till Brooklyn at the beginning when they're in Brooklyn, okay,
I actually loved that one. That was one of the ones I loved.
Yeah, that's okay, but it's like they just kept going back to the licensed music more and more, which felt more and more jarring when you put it up next to this incredibly considered musical score that was, beautiful medleys and renditions of classic Mario songs. And this is already kind of famous, but the use of one licensed song in particular just felt so completely out of place. Specifically, the Take On Me, when Mario, Princess, and Toad get to the Jungle Kingdom, and Was that supposed to be Funky Kong? I don't think so.
No, I don't think that was supposed to be Funky. I think he was just another Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when a Kong in a white sports coat jumps into the Ramby cart and takes the three to the king, there's this entire cart sequence through the Kong village to the tune of Take On Me, which was just so weird, especially when you find out that they had a piece of score directly made for that scene. I'm like,
Yeah.
why was this? It was like, oh, we had some extra money in the budget, so we bought another song, so we've got to use it somewhere. That's kind of how it felt to me.
That feels like studio interference to me, for sure. Because yeah, to your point, there's a track, I just looked it up, there's a track on the soundtrack called Drivin' Me Bananas.
Yeah.
That was made for that scene. It's called Driving Me Bananas. That is absolute, and it fits so perfectly. People have already mashed that song up to the scene. It fits perfectly.
Yep.
So why replace that with some licensed track for no reason? And there are a couple of others.
It had nothing to do.
It made no sense. It made no sense.
No sense whatsoever.
There's a musical sting in that opening scene, which was not in the first time we saw it in that first trailer, where they play that Kill Bill, I think it's called like Battle for Honor and Glory or whatever it's called, that doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, that classic kind of thing. They play that there for like 2 seconds. I don't know why it's there. That made like no sense to me. I really do like the No Sleep Till Brooklyn scene.
That one I thought was good.
Yeah, I liked that. But then, like, there are a couple others, like, to have a montage with I Need a Hero is, like, the most cliched, thing.
And typically, Bonnie Tyler is something you want to save till the third act.
Yeah.
Doing that in a training montage that Mario doesn't actually even successfully finish was also another weird touch. But yeah, the Take On Me inclusion was just like, even before I saw other people talking about it, I was just like, that was kind of weird, wasn't it?
Yeah. Even Thunderstruck in the Mario Kart segment was weird to me. Like, that didn't really do anything for me. Like, I understand what they were going for. Like, it's supposed to look like a sleek kind of hot rod scene in a movie, but like, yeah, almost all of the licensed inclusions of music in this movie, I felt like there was like some Universal Studios exec watching the movie with a notepad out saying, where can we fit licensed music in here? And that to me,
especially after they get to the kart garage when they're choosing their karts and they play that wonderful version of the Mario Kart theme. That amazing version of the Mario, and then they start playing that. I'm like, no, go back to that. Go back
to that. That was way better. There are a few moments in this movie that got me emotional, and 2 of them are related to music. One of them, just like you, Gusty Garden. Yeah. I mean, that got me. Like, that's one of my favorite pieces of music of all time. Another one, when Mario has got the Tanuki suit.
Mm-hmm. And they play the...
They play like a Mario 3 medley in that moment when he's like flying up the length of the chain up to, it is like, that got me. Mario 3 is that is the peak of my Mario nostalgia. Like, that to me is like, that took me right back to sitting on the floor at my granny's house playing Mario 3. Like, I just that put an instant lump in my throat in a way that I didn't expect. And then I also got like way more emotional than I was expecting in the sort of like final moment when I knew Bowser wasn't gonna like kill Mario, but when Luigi comes in and he saves Mario by holding up that manhole, which is a funny like callback. I noticed that Luigi inadvertently does the exact same thing in the beginning of the movie when they have their first plumbing job. On the second viewing, I noticed that Luigi does the same thing. The water starts busting out of the seams, and before it can hit Mario, Luigi has the water spout that he's pushing back with the mirror, and he puts it on there, and it's like a nice little bit of foreshadowing to what's going to happen at the end of the movie. And that got me more emotional than I thought it would. That payoff to like their brotherly relationship. Oh my god. Another thing that I didn't expect to see was the flashback to Baby Mario and Baby Luigi.
That's so great. To game accurate Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. That was amazing.
It was so funny.
So good.
Anastasia, actually, my wife, we were kind of on the drive up to see the movie for the first time. We were just throwing out like wild predictions. And she was like, I bet we're going to see Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. And sure enough, we did. Mm-hmm. It was really good. And even that is like a total, like, yeah, just getting that little bit of extra backstory. You know, of course I wish we got more of it, but there was more here than I was expecting. And we're kind of bouncing all over the place, but once we get to the wedding with Bowser and Peach, and we have that wedding, like you said earlier, she does the heroic sacrifice, and I really like how it's her toads that push her over the edge. It's not like I'm doing this because I need to care about Mario or Luigi. She cares about her toads. Above all else, it's her toads. That is her family, right? This movie has this movie loves family. And she goes up there in that wedding scene. We see King Babam. King Boo.
My God, that's so great. The other royalty, you know, and I've been pitching like a royalty team up within the Mario for a long time. So it was nice for me to see something like that. And of course, you know, I have a lot of love for King Babam and King Boo, both iconic villains from the Mario franchise within their own rights.
Yo, is King Babam dead? Like, did he just get killed in that movie? He blows up. Is he
That's
gone?
That's a philosophical. well, here's the thing. I'm going to throw it back to another emotional moment from Mario history. Bobby.
Okay. Paper Mario the Origami King spoilers also here. But yes. Yeah, you might be right.
So I think maybe.
They found a way.
I think. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, to have King Boo in there too, that's yet another Luigi's Mansion connective tissue. You know what I mean? So I really liked that. I like the way that power-ups are utilized in the movie. That landed with me pretty much every time. I love the gag where Mario just has to keep eating the mushrooms. Poor Mario. Yeah.
The fact that he gets so sick that it actually removes his power up. Yes. And Peach is just there, just like patting him on the back, like, it's okay, buddy. It's okay. Yes. I have seen a couple people online also misrepresent the blue mushrooms. Those are not poison mushrooms. Those are mini mushrooms introduced in Super Mario Bros. DS. They are not the poison mushrooms introduced in Super Mario Bros. 2, the Lost Levels.
Right. Yeah, those are mini mushrooms. And they keep... It's a bit of a mistake. The movie keeps calling them blue mushrooms, which, like, they are mushrooms that are blue, but just call them mini mushrooms. Just remove all the confusion. Mm-hmm. We also need to talk about the Kongs in general. And I think, and this is something I've seen a lot online, and I do agree with it, I think the one kind of like voice miscast for me was Cranky.
I don't know if it was miscast necessarily. I just thought it was weird that they were like, okay, you have the flu.
Yeah, okay, you're like an old Jewish father. Like, go for it, you know?
With a head cold.
Yeah, right? I was doing the Nintendo Drive, and my co-host on the Nintendo Drive, Locklith, mentioned she thought it was Larry David originally.
I can see that, actually.
I kind of would have preferred Larry David. That actually would have been good casting. But.
It's actually Fred Armisen.
Yeah. It's Fred Armisen, and, like, I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I don't know what I was expecting Cranky to sound like, but it wasn't that. Like, it just didn't sound right to me. I will say...
More crotchety, less Laheim.
Yeah, like just more like, I don't know, angry. I don't know. He's kind of aloof a little bit. It's fine, but that's just not how I was imagining him to sound. But I will say Donkey Kong, though, I liked way more than I thought I would going into this movie. Way more. Seth Rogen is just doing Seth Rogen, and he's made it very clear that he doesn't care to do anything else. But I did like the characterization of Donkey Kong more. I liked that antagonistic relationship with Mario, the subtle like trolling that he does for the vast majority of the time, just like pulling up next to him like, I hate you. You know?
Well, that and like kind of, you know, like weaving into his lane a little bit. Before, you know, like stuff starts really going down, but just like messing with him on Rainbow Road a little bit. And then, of course, you know, we'll get to Unagi. But, you know, even in that, they don't have a lot of time really to build Mario and DK's relationship from hated rivals to you know, friendly allies. But given the time frame that they had to work with, I thought they did a passable job.
Yeah, they did. I think they did about as good a job as they could have. You know, and for that, for the Take On Me section notwithstanding, kind of ruining that build-up, we did get some nice Donkey Kong Country stingers in the music leading up to that. And then, of course, when DK is introduced, we get the DK rap. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, not properly credited to Grant Kirkhope, which is unfortunate. And there's actually a petition that Moses, the well-read mage, has been sharing on Twitter. So if you guys care about that, definitely go on Twitter and sign his petition. But
it's like, we need you guys to make this one small change here in the credits. But since you're there, you remember that Driving Me Banana song? Since you're going to be editing the movie anyway,
if you could just go ahead and, you know, put that back in, that'd be great. But but it's a great piece of fan service to have the DK rap in there, to have Diddy, Dixie, and Chunky in there,
all right there, very clearly front and center. Just Dixie looking so disappointed at her boyfriend, just like
just like he's fangirling right now, you know. I love how Cranky like points him out. He's like, that means you too, Diddy Kong. You know, and he points him out. It's pretty good. And there's even like a nice musical stinger when Mario does get the cat suit and defeats DK, and it plays the dun 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 dun. Oh, it's so good. That was a great scene. But to your point though about Unagi, that is when we get that kind of like moment of DK and Mario sort of becoming friends, uneasy friends, but still kind of friends. They work together anyway.
There's the thing is like, you know, like we'll see about friendship after this, but there's clearly something we need to take care of right now, and everything else is secondary.
Right, like this is bigger than us right now. Let's put it aside and figure it out. And there's the whole Rainbow Road thing, which we'll get into because hashtag Seth was right. The whole Rainbow Road scene, it gets blown up. You know, and then we get thrown into the sea. They are swallowed by an Unagi, Ma-Ray. It's gone by multiple different names. And that is where they sort of have like this moment of connection of them both having these kind of strained relationships with their fathers. And I love that Donkey Kong takes the chance to rib Mario. And he's like, well, you know what? Your father was right. Your father sounds brilliant. You know? If your father thinks you were a joke, like your father's right kind of thing. And then Mario lashes out at DK to say like, why don't you go over there and like smash some stuff up, Smash Monkey, you know? And DK has a little outburst and he's like, I'm more than just a big monkey who smashes stuff, you know? And I liked that. I wish we got more of that. And this was another thing, just like Luigi's Mansion and just like Peach, I hope that we end up getting the DK spinoff that I'm sure we're gonna get.
Yeah.
Where we explore more of that, because that was the moment where I was like, oh wow, there is a little bit of texture to Donkey Kong here that I want to see more of.
See, here's the thing with that. Like, that was a nice moment, a nice little character moment for DK. The problem is that specific little moment is kind of undercut by his characterization throughout the rest of the movie, where he just seemed kind of happy to be the Smash Monkey. It's like, I guess I am. I guess that's how I can help. I guess I'm perfectly content being a one-note character. So, like, he has that moment. It's like, well, I'm more than that. but that's like he's never used for anything but that throughout the entire course of the movie. He's used, like he saves the Kongs and Luigi and everybody in the cages at the end, but he still does it like using his strength, using the one thing that he's kind of known for. They never subvert that at the end, and he doesn't, beat somebody using his intelligence or cunning or anything else. He always just uses his strength. And I would have liked to have seen that moment actually pay off, even in some subtle way, toward the end.
Yeah. And I think what we see with DK is we see him at the cross section of he isn't getting the love that he wants from his father.
Yeah.
Right? But he is getting it from everybody else. And what is doing it? It's the dancing pecs. It's this is what you came for, right? It's him being the smash monkey. It's him going into the arena of combat. That's what has the people apparently buying merch. They're wearing DK hats.
Oh, yeah.
They're holding up DK signs. They're playing the rap. Everybody's cheering for DK. He's getting the attention there by being Smash Monkey, but he doesn't necessarily want to just be that. And so, yeah, I agree. I wish we had gotten, more payoff from that in this movie. But if when we wind up getting a DK spinoff, that is probably the number one thing I hope they tap into more. Like the emotional core of this person who is being rewarded for being a big dumb ape, but wants to be seen as more than a big dumb ape, basically. Mm-hmm. So I hope we see more of that. And I did, TLDR, I did come away from this liking that version of Donkey Kong more than I expected to going in, because I did think it was going to be too Seth Rogen. There is a shot where we get the Seth Rogen laugh. We get it a couple of times, but there is a shot where Mario takes the mini mushroom and we get the close-up Seth Rogen, and it's just like not, to me, that was a bridge too far. Like, I didn't need that. But overall, I really like Donkey Kong and his characterization in the movie, and I like that they came around. Eric.
Okay, let's do it.
The blue shell.
Let's do it.
All right. So
we had a long conversation about this.
So the blue shell, y'all. And this has been a very nice moment of vindication for me. Now, I am somebody who I have thrown theories out there that have been famously incorrect. My plot theory for the Mario movie was incorrect.
Mine
I was
too.
hoping, we were all kind of hoping it would be more than it was. It wasn't. That's fine. My rabid Bowser being Edge theory, famously incorrect. But my theory about the blue shell was spot on. And I'm going to take my flowers. And one thing that has been nice to anybody watching on YouTube, I do appreciate your kind comments letting me know that I was right. People have been finding that video again and being like, "Oh my God, he was right." So that has been nice to see. This blue shell character, who we see is the sort of captain of these
paratroopers.
These blue paratroopa spinies, spiny shell Koopa paratroopas. He is piloting this like Mad Max Crusher, cart.
It's like Death Race 2000, Mad Max
Totally.
stuff. It was, God, they straight up turned the Mario Kart sequence into an actual like Death Race Mad Max Fury Road sequence, and it was glorious.
It's awesome. Yeah. And like he's got this he's chasing Mario, and he has got the most like maniacal energy. And I love it. That is exactly what I was kind of like hoping for from him. And like he crushes Mario, thinks he kills him, by the way.
Yeah.
Like absolutely thinks he killed Mario, and he's like laughing maniacally and stuff. And then Mario comes in, kind of like is like, "Psych, you didn't kill me," jumps on his head, gets on the back of DK's cart in a clear double dash homage, and shoots a rocket barrel at him, blowing up the cart. But oh no, you did not get rid of him just yet. And then he goes full kamikaze, straight up blue shell, and dive bombs into the Rainbow Road, destroying it. And that's what sends them into the ocean to be taken by Unagi. And that was such a validating moment to see that they did indeed give us blue shell as a proper character and made like characterization out of the blue shell in the Mario Kart sequence. Thank you. And
maybe I'm just too much of a psycho, but It did. There's a little part of my brain that twitched when he hit the Mario and DK cart, even though Peach and Toad were in front of them.
It's like, makes no sense. Makes no sense. Yeah. He was out for blood, dude. He had that like just crazy look in his eye. Like I just really liked how, and I hope that he's not gone. I hope that they bring him back in the sequel. He's like totally gonna come back. He's out for blood, you know. Maybe something we should talk about too, as kind of speaking of sequels, like the state of Bowser that we're left with, because you know after they have the final confrontation in the streets of Brooklyn. Where Mario and Luigi do get a hold of the superstar, which is I think a really cool like kind of final set piece. It's so cool.
That's so great.
The orchestra swells. There's a shot that is breathtaking. The shot where because immediately Bowser's army starts trying to take them on. The Charge and Chuck, you know, or not the Charge and Chuck, the Hammer Bro comes by with the hammer, it breaks, you know. Luigi comes through and kind of effortlessly saves Spike from a few Koopas, you know, and Spike's even like, Luigi, like, is that you? You know, and then they come in, they do like the total Mario 64 tail throw thing to Bowser.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
And I love like the invincibility, like the Naruto run with their arms outstretched with the
it's perfect. And then there's a shot when they're approaching Bowser where it's just all of the Koopas like bearing down at them, a giant piranha plant like bearing down at them, and it's quick. Like they slow it down and then they just burst through and just destroy them all. Like that's a beautiful shot. Like I want to just have like that shot as like
a
the
poster.
wallpaper. Yeah, just like a wallpaper on my computer or something. And then they get to Bowser, they like uppercut him, they like slam him down, you know, with a final punch. Oh, it's so great, dude.
The meteor smash from Smash, like that's absolutely Mario's meteor punch from Smash. But honestly, one of the most badass things that I've seen in movies in a few years is the opening part of that entire sequence where Bowser walks up and does like a Spartan kick to both of them. That's so powerful that it actually cracks the concrete behind them. But great. Mario and Luigi doesn't move.
Yeah.
Don't move whatsoever. And that's when Bowser's entire mannerism changes from like I'm gonna murder you to like, oh, I'm dead, aren't
I? Oh, this ain't good. Yeah. Oh, I love it. So, and after they, you know, just summarily, you know, whip Bowser up and down the street.
Like, chuckles, I'm in danger.
Yeah. That's when Peach comes and force feeds him a mini mushroom, essentially. Yep. And Toad picks him up, puts him in a glass jar. And that's the end of Bowser for this particular movie, and it's paid off, of course. The Mario flirting with Peach, saying, "I'll buy you a pet turtle when you go to Brooklyn." Told you I'd get you that turtle. You know, it's a nice little payoff moment. But I'm curious about the state of Bowser when we leave him in this movie. He's in this like bird cage under constant guard from Toads, with a little mini piano singing Peaches in the mid-credits scene. You know, of course. But I'm really curious to see how they're going to circle back to that in the sequel, if he's just going to get busted out, if something is going to happen to where he takes damage, because it was established that when you take damage, that is how you revert. That's how it happens to Mario.
That's what I was going to say, is like all Bowser needs to do is lay underneath the piano and kick one of the legs out.
Yeah, and then he just bursts out of the, you know, so I'm curious how that's going to pay off. One thing that would be kind of nice to see, I love it in Mario RPGs in particular, where we team up with Bowser.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be so neat to see in the sequel. If there's some sort of circumstance that lets them team up, that'd be cool.
There are a couple. Obviously, you know, you talk about Mario RPG, could be Smithy. I don't think they're going to go the Smithy route, or Princess Shroob.
Wild. That would be wild.
Or Princess Shroob or anybody like that. I honestly don't know if there's any Mario bad guys famous enough, iconic enough to also be a truly featured, be even like a red herring bad guy before Bowser inevitably comes in and is like, it was me, Mario. It was me all along kind of thing. You could maybe make the argument for Wart, but even then, I don't know.
Nobody's got that kind of name recognition for sure. But I'm almost, another thing that I was sort of thinking about, and we've already talked about the Galaxy stuff.
Count Black.
Count Black, that'd be sick. Yeah, that'd be awesome. But like, look, we're no stranger to Rosalina being made into the villain at this point. Could be kind of interesting.
That would be absolutely nuts.
Could be kind of interesting.
Absolutely nuts.
It could be a total Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 moment, right? Where they bring in this kind of like long-lost sister or mother, whatever she is, and she winds up having some sort of villainous intent and becomes the villain at the end. Could be.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know, but I was not expecting, in the third act, it was pretty cut and dry, clear. Okay, here's the final confrontation. Here's the end of it. We're going to destroy Brooklyn, or we're going to destroy the Mushroom Kingdom with this nuke Banzai Bill. I was not expecting an actual travel back to Brooklyn for the final second stage of the boss fight kind of thing. I was not expecting that, and I can't help but wonder whether or not the way that Mario gets back to Brooklyn, the way that he travels through that underground warp and comes out in a construction site, it felt, again, maybe I'm just thinking too hard about it, but it immediately reminded me of the Super Mario Brothers 1993 live action movie, because that's exactly what happens for the final confrontation. They don't end the final confrontation there in Brooklyn. It's just kind of a weird part of it where they all kind of materialize at the construction site in New York City. They wind up going back, but not before King Koopa, Dennis Hopper, can use a super scope to turn a congressman into a monkey. But spoilers for the 1993 Mario movie. I apologize.
Now nearly 30 years old. Sorry. Sorry.
If
you're one of those people that bought it on Amazon.
Exactly, yeah. That made it the top selling DVD on Amazon this past week, which was amazing, by the way. But the fact, just that whole little sequence there, I was like, is it a direct reference? Is it? I don't know.
I mean, I think that there is definitely something to be said about, there are a couple of things when it comes to establishing a Mario movie and kind of getting them from here to there that movie did get right. Because even the beginning of the movie, the way they get to the Mushroom Kingdom, not that dissimilar from what happens.
Really not.
In the 1993 movie, they have like the Scapelli, antagonistic plumber. Here they have Foreman Spike.
Exactly, yeah.
They wind up going like underground. They get to the Mushroom Kingdom, and then it all kind of culminates. They come back. I mean, there is definitely, there's no overt reference made to the 93 movie, but there definitely are shades of it there. And it does stand, I think it really just kind of serves to show like what that movie got right. And how they definitely I do feel like the people, whoever, the script writers, the directors, whatever, took a couple of notes, and I appreciate that, because I think they made the right call. One thing I was surprised about is that when we end the movie, Mario and Luigi are not back in Brooklyn, as a home base. They have a new home in the Mushroom Kingdom, and they just go to work every day with another licensed track, because sure, why not? I have seen a lot of people.
I have seen a lot of people postulate whether or not, because it's the same track that Chris Pratt. You talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah,
it's the same track that Chris Pratt, Star-Lord, wakes up to in Guardians of the Galaxy. So I have seen a couple people wonder if that was kind of an intentional parallel.
Maybe. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that might be it. It's still, they wake up and they have like their coffee and stuff, and then they go out on their adventures and whatever, and that's all fine. But I was surprised that they didn't wind up just like going back home to Brooklyn and living with their family, because there's the moment with the dad, again voiced by Charles Martinet, kind of coming to terms of being proud of his boys, and so I thought for sure they were just gonna go back and now they're successful plumbers, and and this, that, and the other, but it seems like they're just like holed up back in the Mushroom Kingdom, and I'm kind of curious what's next for them. They live together,
Well,
you know?
that pipe. I mean, my take on that was they live in the Mushroom Kingdom, but they still go to work in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Maybe.
Because we've established they can get back there fairly easily. I don't know exactly what happened when they got back to the Mushroom Kingdom, but we see them in Brooklyn, but then we see them holed up in the Mushroom Kingdom, so they were very clearly able to get back somehow, regardless of the explosion and whatever damage that caused. There's still clearly a pathway there. And I mean, once you've established that pathway, why not just use it whenever you want? So that was kind of my take on it. Was sure, I would love to live in the Mushroom Kingdom if I could go visit my parents for breakfast or go to work in Brooklyn or something. Yeah. I would absolutely have that as the home base if the commute to because Brooklyn must seem pretty boring by comparison at that point.
True. Yeah, and the rent is probably way higher.
That's true, yeah. They literally saved the Mushroom Kingdom, no rent.
Yeah.
To be honest, they saved Brooklyn, so Mayor Pauline is probably talking about,
that's what should have happened. Yeah, put them in the high rise, There
you go. Speaking of Pauline, I know you want to see her, more of her in the sequel.
I definitely do, and I kind of hope that, again, this is another thing I was thinking about for, like a DK spinoff. It would be kind of neat to involve her in some way in a DK spinoff. I mean, I want her to be with Mario, just because of their history in the games. But in this canon, I could see them doing a thing where, to your point, that wormhole is open now. DK could go back to Brooklyn. He's now one of the people that saved Brooklyn, too. They take a picture together at the end in the newspaper. Like, Pauline knows who he is. She could be a love interest for DK in DK's own movie. I could see that. So, yeah. I think my overall takeaway for all these complaints about, like, a
Candy's
threadbare
gonna
plot...
be so jealous.
Maybe. A Candy's got to be, somewhere, right? And Funky.
Yeah.
We see what I think is a picture of Funky in Cranky's house, in his hut. There's a picture of him, and then they even, like, the map they have of the Jungle Kingdom looks like the Super Mario world map.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
So good. There's so many little things like that. Like, you could do a whole, just picking apart all the Easter eggs, but...
many people have, and they've still missed a lot.
Yeah, there's just so much to chew on, but I would like to see, I think that, like, my general takeaway for, again, is as threadbare as the plot can be, the possibilities here, the way that this movie has kickstarted this, like, this potential Mario cinematic universe, so to speak.
Well, it's made all the money so far, so...
Yeah, like, the possibilities, like, what's going on with Peach? Where's Rosalina? DK spinoff when? Luigi's Mansion spinoff when? I could see them doing a Captain Toad, like, animated series with Keegan-Michael Key's Toad, Like,
the thing is, there is a lot, and that's part of the problem, is DC ran into this problem when they tried to do too much too quickly, building up the Justice League. They tried to go too big, too fast, and it blew up in their face. Sure, I'd like for them to explore all these possibilities, but we've got time for that. They don't have to release all of those movies next year. And I'm not necessarily saying that to you. I'm saying that more to Nintendo.
Right.
Like, they can take their time, because one of the things, despite a lot of the ridiculously over-serious critics that went to go see this film, as far as the core fan base of Mario, I think the universal consensus is this movie absolutely did right by them, and I think a lot of it comes down to the time that they took with it. It certainly was a long time coming, but this was a slow burn that wound up really tasting amazing in the end, and I don't want them to start trying to rush all their next projects just because they get dollar signs in their eyes. There's a huge possibility that could happen, and I really hope it doesn't.
Yeah. I hope they take a more measured approach, because this movie has got a lot of love in it.
Yeah.
And I want everything that comes from this to have that same amount of love, for sure. Okay. we've already been going for somehow like close to an hour and a half just talking about spoilers and stuff. There's so much to dig into this movie. We could probably sit here and talk about this for much longer.
Yep.
But were there any other spoilers you wanted to quickly hit before we wrap up? Anything else that we haven't somehow covered already?
Wow, okay. The whole thing with Francis, admittedly, I thought was kind of weird.
I loved it. I love Francis. I thought that was so funny. It's weird, like it's weird and dumb, but like, dude, the movie's way funnier than I thought it would be. Like, I'm not normally the kind of guy to laugh at like that kind of slapsticky kind of thing, but Francis really worked for me. I don't know. I really liked that scene. I thought it was hilarious.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of weird, but I mean, ultimately, that's I don't have too much to say.
I mean, it's weird to see Mario like fighting, like kicking a dog. Like that is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah. Oh man.
I'd like to see the post from Can You Pet the Dog on Twitter about.
You don't pet Francis, and they pay it off at the end too, where Francis just gives him like a solemn like nod.
Yes. He's like, you did good, kid, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. It's so stupid. Like it is so stupid, but that really worked for me.
You know what? I think for an hour and a half, we've gone longer than the movie has, literally. So I think we're okay.
All right. I think we've probably covered it. Again, this is the kind of thing, and you know, this movie I think represents a really exciting nexus point for us as Nintendo fans. We have something like this. Like, this is so, after nearly 30 years of Mario not being on the big screen, Mario is back on the big screen. There are all of these possibilities that we can sit here and talk about and postulate about, and that is so exciting to me. Like, and it's so great too to see, critics aside, to see like the fans react the way that they have reacted, and just the joy that we've all been able to share about this movie has been really special. And I feel like we're gonna be talking about this movie for years to come. You know?
My favorite thing about this movie has nothing to do with the actual movie at all. This happened to me right before I went to go see the movie my second time, and I saw a family coming out of the movie in full cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
The whole family. It was a father and 3 kids, two young boys and a young girl that the father was holding, and they were all, you know, he was dressed up as Luigi, the kids were dressed up as Mario, Toad, and Peach, and he just had the biggest, most fulfilling smile on his face, and all the kids were like, "Oh, that was so good! That was and did you remember this and this and this?" And it was just this portrait of a father who had clearly just shared something with his kids, shared in a moment, shared in a passion with his kids, and the kids could not have been more excited about it. I was genuinely so moved by just seeing that family and the kids' excitement and the smile on the father's face that I was almost moved to tears. And I was like, it doesn't matter what I think of the movie. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks of the movie. That right there is what matters. That's why I love this movie, is for those experiences and for those people who are able to have that experience. For as much as we talked about Charles Martinet passing the torch to Chris Pratt, for those parents who are going to be passing the torch of their love and their passion for, even if it's Mario or video games in general, for something about this, who are going to use this movie as a passing of the torch of their passion to the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I saw it with my nephews, you know, same experience. You know what I mean? It's so, that is so special, man. Yeah. And I said this in the spoiler for your review that we did on the show too, but like, for stuff like that, I don't care to dissect this movie objectively. I really don't. Like, to me, this movie did everything that it needed to, and I really appreciate it for that. Guys, if you liked this spoiler cast, whether you're listening, whether you're watching on YouTube, leave us that like. here on the video. Subscribe
Please.
to us here on the channel. Yes, please, if you haven't already. We appreciate it. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, patrons at patreon.com/allinpodcast got this early. And they get a lot of stuff early, and they get exclusive content too, so definitely be sure to check that out. Links are in the description. We've referenced a few times that we did a spoiler-free version of this review, talking about kind of more top-level and spoiler-free thoughts on the movie during the main podcast, which you can see both here on the YouTube channel and on your audio feeds. Links to that are in the video description. You can also join our friendly, free, and welcoming Discord community full of amazing people talking about this movie, and links to that are in the description as well. But until next time, guys, for Eric, I've been Seth. Bye-bye.